Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Retained Recruiter Show. Normally with James and Joe, but it's just with me, James O'Brien. So thank you very much for joining us today. I've been really looking forward to this session for a number of weeks, well, actually since 2022, when I requested that Eli Barinholtz join us on the Retained Recruiter Show. So Eli, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Why don't we start, Eli, and why don't you just, for those people listening in and watching in, whether they're listening live, if you are listening live, please let us know. But if you're watching back on playback, why don't you share a little bit about your background and your current business?
Okay, so my background is in textile industry, in the corporate workwear market. I used to have 2 factories in the Netherlands and one in Slovakia and one in Porto, in Portugal. Sold the company after 10 years. I went into recruitment because I had very bad experience with recruiters trying to find my management staff in that company. That was 1998 when I started in recruitment. Been in recruitment ever since, and changed the way I worked about 10, 11 years ago into a well-known methodology called iIntro. Very happy ever since, still doing the same. We are a small, we call it a boutique company, so it's a mom and pop company with one assistant that we have, and that's it. And it's turned into a lifestyle business, very comfortable.
Good. Well, listen, I'm fascinated to hear a bit more about your story, particularly over the last 10 years. And obviously, your background in industry obviously gives you, a lot of kudos when you're actually talking to employers in the sector, because obviously you've been there as well. But let's talk a little bit more about your, take us back to 10 to 15 years ago, your journey into recruitment. Well, I know 25 years ago, but how you were running your business then before we became acquainted as organizations.
I think it's probably very recognizable standard way of doing business. So running the textile business, I already got the feeling that I needed to do something else. And I started with giving sales training because sales was a part of the business that I was, let's say, good at. So I wrote a little book, Introduction to Sales Strategies. And I started very simply with going through the yellow pages at A and founding an automotive shop where I trained the staff. And during the first half year of training, I found out that there were guys that I had to train for a role, which I knew after half a day of training, well, they'll never succeed. They're just not the right people for the role. And I started wondering, why the hell were they hired for this type of role? And then when I stopped the textile business and sold it off, I said, I need to solve this problem for entrepreneurs like myself, of preventing them to hire the wrong people for the wrong roles. And that's why we got into recruitment. And we very quickly found out that IQ was less important than EQ. We just didn't know how to package it or how to make a method out of it. But we managed, and we did it in all kinds of industries already, but mainly in the IT and technology industry. And the reason was, as you said, there was a good connection between people that had production companies or IT and technology companies, because my company was also pretty advanced, the textile company in production and both in IT. And from there on, we branched out up until the moment that we met you guys. We did about 20% retained, 80% contingency. Comfortable. If we can talk numbers, for a man and pop company, we did somewhere around $250,000 to $300,000 a year in, year out. It's good enough to live comfortably of. You end up with 50 to 100 grand every year that you can save up. So that's fine, but it's nothing spectacular. And it kind of evolved from there on. Let's not forget how I got to know iIntro. I was approached as a candidate.
Yeah.
That's how we guys met.
Yeah.
I did an interim job, which I did in between recruitment jobs as well. And I restructured a company in the workwear and PPE market. And shortly after that, I got a phone call from a UK-based recruitment company that you know very well, called Grass Greener.
Yeah.
And they said they were looking for a CEO. And so I started the recruitment process as a candidate in the then, still running in beta version of iIntro as a candidate. And I was shocked on one side, but very pleasantly surprised to figure out, oh God, there's another company that feels the same way about recruitment that I do, but they have it, down to the nitty gritty. They have it worked out as a methodology, and we just were, oh, let's do it this way or that way. And we didn't have that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was amazed about the fact that you guys already had a methodology with a piece of technology behind it. And the process was fun. At the end, I know that your client put one of their own people inside. It was an investment company. Yeah. But shortly after we made contact, I said, look, guys, I know about two things, the workwear market and recruitment. Yeah. Don't you want to do the workwear market in Europe with me? And I offered myself up as being one of your partners, being the associate partner for Europe. And that's how we got started, basically.
It was. And if you go back all those years ago, and by the way, in the comments group, Plum has said to say hi, Eli. So he's sort of saying hello to you there, because obviously go back, and Plum and Ivanoff, the co-founder of iIntro, with Paul Hickey, who's also the co-founder and managing director of Grass Greener in the UK, is obviously where that relationship formed. And it's interesting because obviously you being a recruiter and obviously a candidate at the same time, it was interesting to get that perspective on the difference in terms of quality of service you could do. But when we sort of can fast forward a little bit, but bring it all back to the fact that what I think, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I think attracted you was the process. And this is something I myself very much felt that, I was trying to, myself, when I was trying to sell Retained in a very haphazard way. You were 2080. I'd say I was probably 595, in favor of contingent, trying to figure out a way to do it. And when I saw that process, as well as, I got seduced by the technology. I'll be honest. I got seduced by the technology. I think I'm buying some technology here, but it's then that whole wraparound service of actually changing your process. So how did you go through that transition yourself?
Well, as I said, first I was in shock because there was a process. And, if in your mind, you already made the decision that you need to offer more than traditional recruitment, we gone that far. We understood that just sending out some resumes isn't adding value to your client.
Yeah.
And we were also, I worked as an IT recruiter for many years. I had in between, I didn't mention it in my introduction, I had a software company myself in IT security. So I know how software works, and I know that it can be supportive for processes, but we never managed to come up with the right methodology and processes. And you guys had the processes. And what I realized is, okay, so that's why 80% isn't willing to give me retained searches, because I can't convince them that I offer them more added value than any other recruiter. And the extra added value that you can offer when you have a process in place that you can't just talk about, but you can show them on a screen exactly what you're going to do, where and when in the process, suddenly makes the role of a recruiter much more interesting for a potential client than when you just talk about, we're going to find you some good candidates. Everybody can say that, but this is the first time you can show how you're going to do it, what you're going to put the candidates through, when you're going to do it. And that is an eye-opener for prospective clients, because they were never able to see that. And it's very interesting, because the first name of my company, before we changed it to Grass Greener, it was Probus, which comes from the Latin word probitas, which is, we would say probitas is called openness. So opening up the process, but we never showed them the process. We just said, well, we're very honest and we will tell you exactly what we do for our money. But all we could say is say it in words. Now, for the first time, you can show a prospective client actually what the value is that you're going to add by showing them the process from A to Z before you start.
Yeah, and I know that makes a huge difference. And I mean, obviously, what we're doing is we're taking a process, and that transparency and openness of the system. We're able to visualize that for the clients and show them that we're moving them. And some of the phraseology I like to use sometimes, Eli, is we're moving them from the 20th century, which is a one-dimensional CV resume based focus on skills, knowledge, and experience, and moving them to a multi-layered scientific and objective evaluation, where you're actually giving the client more data points, more information to help them make a more informed hiring decision. And it fascinated me too, in terms of.
And you just mentioned a very important word, an objective method.
Yeah.
Because that's what triggers them, especially in the current times, where people want to have objectivity, inclusivity, unbiased, etc. A recruiter can say that, but once he uses iIntro as a methodology, he can prove it.
Yeah.
And once the client can prove to the outer world or to any candidate that they had in file that they were, very unbiased in the process, it resolves a lot of compliancy and whatever problems you have in, are you being unbiased, do you discriminate or whatever, because it's not possible if you follow the methodology in the process.
Very true. I mean, diversity and inclusion is such a big hot topic at the moment. It's one of those things when we look at using a modular platform to help the employer, as we say, make that more informed decision. You can anonymize it so that they can remove the bias from the equation, which is a really important feature. I mean, it's not used in every single occasion, but it's all to do with the functionality of the business. By the way, I mean, we're listening today. If you're listening into us, you're hearing sort of Eli talking about his process. If you want to find out more about how we can help you, then you can book a discovery call with us. You'll see it flash across the top of the screen. Just click on that link, and you can book some time with ourselves, and we'll just sort of share with you how we can help you if you're interested in taking some of this journey. But listen on for more information on how Eli sort of developed his business moving forward. So Eli, let's carry on the journey. So you've now got a new process. Tell us some of the other things that sort of attracts you to it, and I also want to move into some of the results that you've had, which I think you politely called yourself a mom and pop business making $250,000. I know a lot of people who'd be actually very interested in making that one themselves. So I think they're going to be have their eyes starting to water soon when we get to some of the numbers.
Yeah. Well, no, they drastically improved. Let me start by saying that. So what comes out of it is, and that's very interesting, I still see a lot of recruiters that have niches where they work in.
Yeah.
If you actually see the product and you see iIntro for what it is, and let me be very, very strong-minded about it, it is not a software product. It is a methodology that you're buying into that gives you a process. You will find out within 6 months that it works generically. So we did 90% of our business in IT before we did and worked with the methodology in iIntro. We now maybe still do 10 or 15% in IT, but we are now in the chemical industry. We are, we work for Dutch companies like PostNL, which is a Dutch post, or KPN, or VDL Netcar, the only car manufacturer we have here. We go from small accountancy companies that are looking for a partner to multinationals that are huge, that work worldwide. And we can convince them that what used to be a benefit is not a benefit anymore. Let me explain that very shortly. The typical recruiter in the past, and probably some of the people that are now tuned into this, are people that either worked 20 years in a certain vertical, let's say in finance, and then decided, I'm going to become a recruiter in the finance sector because I know a lot of people. Or they have studied psychology for 4 to 6 years and said, I can read people and I can evaluate them. So I'll go into the human HR business, and profitable business would be recruitment.
Yeah.
That's the classical profile of a recruiter until 10, 15 years ago. That all changed. Why? Well, because for the young ones listening today, if they don't know what a Rolodex is, look it up. It's where you kept your business cards. And in the past, prospective clients would ask me, how large is your database?
Yeah.
And they wanted to know, because if your database was just a few hundred people in a certain niche, they didn't believe you can find clients. Today, everybody in the world's got the same database. It's called Google.
Yeah.
And you can find anybody that's good in writing a Boolean search string or whatever, and you find everybody anywhere in the world. So that opens up a lot of possibilities, because now, instead of just being an IT recruiter, we became recruiters generically for everybody in the whole country. We decided we would go generic, but we would focus on management. So we focused on roles, let's say, starting at 100,000 euros, so 85,000 pounds and up.
Yeah.
What that did is two things. First of all, you get to talk to people that understand what you're doing and understand the importance of methodology and process. Because everybody high up in management got there because they know how to run a process.
Indeed.
Yeah. It also means that the candidates that you're generating are in management. So if you have 8 people on a short list or a long list, and you place one and you treat the other 7 right, they will find a job within the next year, but they'll remember your process, as I did when I was a candidate in iIntro.
Indeed, yeah.
So that gives you 7 prospective clients for the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So that's how we developed and how we evolved. And back to numbers, 2.5 to 300,000 euros when we started. Today, a bad year would be 500,000 to 600,000. An average year would be around 800,000. A good year, like we had in 2019, 1.2 million. And we're still 2 people and 1 assistant.
Which just goes to show that with and listen, I know you obviously work very hard. You both work very hard in you all three of you work very hard.
No, we don't. James, we don't work hard. We work smart.
There you go. I was going to feed you the line. I knew you'd get there with that one. Well done.
No, we don't work hard. We work smart. We get paid for added value, which we actually add. We add the value, and a client can see that. I know that in the introduction of me coming on board is you said that, tell the people how I make a 96% retention after 12 months. We don't. We are a little over 98% at the moment.
Yeah.
96% with us is after 2 years.
Yeah. Find
a competitor that can show you those numbers. Hardly any. If you find them, usually, all right, they work with iIntro.
Yeah. And I think it's also about how we then utilize that statistic, because by itself, it's 98%, 96% people are saying, well, so what does that mean? Again, we learn to use that in the recruitment risk reversal policies that we offer organizations, because we can show them we're their recruitment partners. It's where we see ourselves as management consultants specializing in talent acquisition to the managerial sector. So the reality is, it's how you use those statistics to your benefit in your sales process.
And where? Because we found out that we don't sell too many searches to HR. My way of getting into a company usually is when I speak to somebody in finance, like a CFO, because he's looking for the numbers and he sees what the HR department costs. He sees how much they spend on recruitment.
Yeah.
And now he sees that the average retention of candidates from either his in-house recruitment or external suppliers is somewhere in Europe around 67 to 70% in management. Yeah. Here comes a potential supplier that says, that's interesting. So 67%, well, we do 98%. So we are 38% measurably better than your own in-house recruiters or your current suppliers. How much do you think the difference in expenditure is for that company if they have to hire 2 or 3 people a year? It's huge.
Indeed.
And if a normal supplier charges 20% of the yearly salary and we charge 27 or 28, we are still a bargain. And the finance guy gets that in 5 minutes. The HR guy doesn't. So we try to put our pitch, when it consists of numbers, we try to involve the finance guy.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, and I think that's what can make the distance. Some interesting. Everyone's enjoying your comments. And hello, Liz. It's nice. Yeah, Eli is a great ambassador for iIntro, so it's great to have him on board. It's probably why we invited him. But it's interesting to hear a story, because hopefully you'll be able to judge for yourself that Eli is just talking from the heart here. This is his experience, and we are here. iIntro, we operate across the world, working with organisations who are looking to transition all or part of their business to a different way of working. And Eli's living proof that can happen, but it doesn't come without effort, does it, Eli? I mean,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't come with effort, and it comes with discipline. And the discipline is, if you think you can buy and close a contract with iIntro, and that's your ticket to heaven, forget it.
Yeah,
that's where it starts.
Yeah,
what you're buying is the tools to change around your business and improve your margins, improve your turnover, and go to retained search from contingency search. However, once you have the tools, don't forget to follow the training, because iIntro will give you training how to use the tools.
Yeah.
And don't think it's a bunch of, excuse my French, bullcrap that they're telling you, because it's proven that it works. I know that Plowman's on the show as well. Plowman will probably laugh his head off right now, because in the beginning, all I said to Plowman is, oh, no, all I need is the product. I can do the rest myself. And we had lengthy discussions about it. And only in the end, when I said, well, maybe I should take a look at your training academy. Maybe I should take a look at how you guys think that we should sell this, etc., etc. Did I see the real growth coming? In the beginning, I was as stubborn as an entrepreneur can get. And I was like, I'm buying the tool. I know what I do with the tool, and that's it.
Yeah.
No, it does not work. That's a warning to people that are now listening in and saying, I got to get me that. Yes, you do, but only if you are sure that you can commit yourself to the process, to the training, and if you can educate your people in your organization to use it the way it's supposed to be used. If you're not sure you can do that, don't.
Yeah. I mean, education is such a big thing, because also not only are we educating ourselves in terms of changing the way that we work, which is uncomfortable. And I appreciate your comments there about you saying, how stubborn you were as an entrepreneur, because we reach a degree of maturity and we think we know it all, but sometimes actually there are just different ways to do it. And so I appreciate the fact that you opened your eyes to that particular piece. But we're also educating the employers, because we've got to remember how stubborn you were as an entrepreneur. Think about how stubborn the employers are, because they've had it rammed down their throats that, this is the way recruitment works. We throw CVs, resumes at you as fast as we can, and we hope some of them stick. So we are trying to change the way that they think as well, which is why it's an interesting approach to go to some of the money men, the CFOs, as you said.
It is. And it's, and that too was a matter of hanging in there. That's another thing I can give to the listeners is, once you start working with it, you won't change your business in 6 or 12 months. You'll see, if you see some results in the first 6 months and you score 1 or 2 extra retained searches, good on you. It's fine. But it needs time, and you need to learn how to pitch it.
Yeah.
And, if I try to help somebody work with the methodology, I always say, okay, the first 10 meetings we'll do together. First meeting, you just shut up and listen, and I'll do the pitch. Second meeting, you do the pitch 20%, I'll take 80%. And after the last meeting, he's heard all the objections, because people will object to the methodology. Some parts of it they find very strange. They want to know, well, will a candidate put in all the effort needed to fill their own file online? And they have doubts, especially in the segment that I'm in. If I have to find a CFO and I have to tell the CFO that after sending me his resume, he needs to spend between 2 and 3 hours probably to fill his own file, including answers to key competency questions, etc. My client always starts, but a senior person won't do that, and they won't spend all that time. And I said, you know what? Especially the senior person is going to be very, very happy that for the first time in his life in a recruitment process, he's allowed to show more of himself than just a resume.
Absolutely.
He will do it. But these remarks from clients will come, and you need to know how to handle those, and you need to know why it does work, and that takes time.
It does. I was speaking to somebody earlier on this afternoon with Darren Ledger from our team. We're talking to a potential client of iIntros, and he was just talking about the fact that it's a reservation we hear all of the time. Oh, my candidates won't build their profiles, and we've got we come across this as recruiters all the time. And obviously, you were talking about the impact that you get back from the employer, but the principle is the same. Simply, if it's just a job where they've just thrown their resume in the ring, then no, they're not going to do it, because they just know that their chance of success is minimal. But when you actually educate the candidate and the employer about the process, they start to understand, this is your opportunity to shine. This is your opportunity to showcase yourself in a way that you've never been able to before. In the past, you've just relied on a recruiter getting your resume in there and hoping that you actually land an interview, and then hopefully get the chance to do your magic. Here, we showcase, we invite candidates to engage with the process until they feel part of the process, and it's a real different thing. And for me, I was trying to explain to somebody else earlier on today, over in Thailand, another one of our clients, how the importance of things like candidate information packs, Eli, in terms of how they help the candidate understand what your process is. So this is, when you come back to the methodology, we've got it, we have got it down pat. We know the pieces. Obviously, we're constantly evolving and changing, but it's really about helping candidates understand that, if you want the next job in your career, not just a job, we can help get you there. If you're an employer and we want you to hire the best person, who's going to stay with you and make a positive contribution to your team and not have a 30% risk of falling out in the first 12 months, we've got the methodology and the process to deliver that. So I think that's true as well. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that myself, but that's how passionate I feel about it.
And there's also a very simple thought that usually sticks with the client very quickly. That is, look, sir, if I have a really good candidate that is on board up until the moment that he needs to spend some time on his profile. He doesn't want to do that. All we have, I don't know what the English correct word is a tire kicker. It's a guy that wants to know, or a woman that wants to know what he or she's worth on the market. She's not, or he's not really interested in the job. If he's interested in the job and motivated, he'll spend 2 hours or 2.5 hours filling his profile. It's and it's once again, it shows you that in the beginning, you don't really know where all the added values within the methodology are. But once you start working with it, you find out that, oh, that's interesting. I get those remarks from prospective clients all the time. But in this methodology, here's a proven thing that his objection is not correct.
Yeah.
And we used to struggle to answer to objections. We don't struggle anymore because most of the objections that we've ever heard are tackled by the methodology and the process.
Indeed.
And that gives you, and it gives you confidence when you go out to a prospective client. You know, I now go there, and I don't know if that's something that the people that are now listening in are measuring. We try to measure our conversion rate. So of every 10 prospective calls that I have with clients, how many deals do I get?
Yeah.
That used to be somewhere around 20%, which my colleagues in the business said, oh, that's great. I'm now very disappointed at the end of the year if my conversion rate isn't somewhere between 70 and 80%. So my challenge at the moment is, how many times do I get at a desk in a one-to-one meeting with a prospective client? Because I know if it's 10 times, you know, at the end of the day, I'll be home sitting with 7 or 8 assignments.
Well, that's a fascinating story. I've got two things, but one, I want to share something else with you, just, you know, because again, other people have listened into this event that we do, and sometimes think, oh, you know, are these all, you know, people putting people up? But we've just taken on board a new client really in the early part of January, and he's pitched 5 times already, Eli, and he's actually on the same statistic as you. He's got a 4 out of 5 conversion rate, and he's sort of, they can't believe it because they're thinking, you know, they followed the process, followed the methodology. You know, they're still in training, by the way. I need to tell you that. You know, they've had to, they're running almost before they can walk. So we'll be playing a game of catch up there. But Palmer's just asked if you can tell a story, and I think I know the story as well. And I think the guy's name is Peter Van Steen, and how you turned that candidate into a multi-vacancy client.
Oh, that's a big one. Peter Van Steen. He was a candidate for an international role at a transport company.
Yeah. And
he got the role. So the board of that company said, we want him. Now the board did something very stupid because Peter hadn't signed anything yet. And they already presented him to the management team and said, we found a new CEO. And he can come on board then. And then Peter got a call from another headhunter, a very famous name, let's say top 5 worldwide big ones, double name.
Yeah.
And they don't struggle. So he got a call from them for another role as a CEO of another company. And they kind of offered him twice as much in pay.
What are you going to do?
He's a Dutch guy. He likes money. So he said, look, guys, sorry that I said, but I'm going to go for the other role. So our client basically was pissed. I can understand. However, the conclusion was, so you're not paying what the market needs you to pay to get in this level of candidate, period. And the other company is willing to pay what is needed to get that caliber of candidate. So the guy signed up at another company. But what the guy did again is he was a candidate through the process. And the first time he had a vacancy, country manager UK, in his new role, guess who he called? He didn't call the recruitment company that got him that role. He called, in this case, Grass Greener in the UK and said, look, guys, I have a vacancy now. I was so amazed by the process that I went through as a candidate. Can you guys help me find a country manager? Because I want my candidates now to be processed in the same way.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, how this guy came in. And Paul very politely said, well, I have good news for you. You're in the Netherlands. We have a Dutch branch as well. Why don't you speak to the owner there? That's how I got to meet him. We are now, I think, 9 years further. As of January this year, I think we did 11 assignments for him, at least once a year. And he's running Western Europe. But for the headquarters, we even did a CFO in Costa Rica, which proved my point that you can if you have the methodology, you can do searches in any branch, in any area of the world, as long as you can read or understand the language, of course, because you need to be able to search.
Yeah.
But we did a search for them in Costa Rica, finding a CFO. We did everything remote up until the long list of 12 people. Then we flew out there, spent 4 days, interviewed the 12 people face to face after interviewing them online, and then presented 4 candidates in our shortlist, and they picked a candidate.
Fantastic.
And it works. It just works. But you're right with the fact that, the guys that are now still in training and score 4 out of 5, first of all, they'll probably end up having better results than I had over the last 10 years if they're already that, because I wasn't nearly that good in the first year. Not at all. With me, it took the second year, halfway to the end of the second year, I got the hang of it.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a couple of things have changed, though, Eli. To be fair to yourself, I mean, we as an organisation have grown as well over the last 10 years. We work with over 250 companies, helping them deliver 140, 150 million worth of retained business. So we can help do that, and obviously, and so we've improved our training and support services as well. Because I like you, became involved just around about the same time, of course. And and I, as I said earlier, I was seduced by the software because, hey, I was a bit geeky and thought it was quite good. But actually, I eventually understood that it wasn't about the software; it was about the methodology and the process, which I think you came to learn as well. So listen, fascinating stories, Eli. And again, for anybody who wants our help or a little bit more information, we've had a couple of flashes up there. Book a call with us. Happily talk you through what we can do to help you. We help all sizes of businesses, and I think Eli's story today, where he's talked about himself, 3 people in his business, two front facing people sort of out there with the employers, and 1 support assistant doing up to 1.2 million of revenue. That's sort of fantastic news. So Eli, I think
can I get in one more remark if I can?
Yeah, of course you can.
People might not realize it, but once you start with the methodology, you're getting the chance to enter a new market, which you haven't done before if you've done just recruitment for fixed positions. And we just started with that, I think, 3.5 years ago. We found out that if you position this correctly, this is a very interesting methodology also to place interim managers.
Good point.
Because for interim managers, the market is still like the recruitment market used to be 15, 20 years ago. A company says, I need an interim manager. Resumes over the counter in the next 24 or 48 hours. Yeah. However, if you can convince a company, look, this is an interim role, not just the resume is of importance, but a lot of other things play a role with an interim manager. You want the elephant in the china cupboard, you want the slow, soft change or whatever. You need to go deeper into a candidate of what he's all about. Using this methodology for us opened up a market that we never entered before. And I think by the end of next year, we're going to do about 50-50 in turnover between recruitment and interim management. Wow. And we never did interim management because we had no credibility there. So just something to think about. If you're thinking about joining iIntro and working with iIntro, don't be narrow-minded and think just about what you're doing today, but realize that once you have the methodology in place, there's a lot of things you can do with it in the HR business.
Indeed, and brilliant story. And I think you say it's just I think it's really interesting point you make about interims, because like you say, do you need the elephant in the china room, or do you need the softly approach? And just because somebody says that's what they are, again, some of the tools that we use, and we work with McQuaig, and you're a big advocate of McQuaig as I am. And last time round we had Jo Emerson, who's the MD of McQuaig in Europe. And she was sort of explaining the way we do things differently. So go back and have a look at that, because there's some interesting facts there that we do. But there's one little story that Plum wants you to tell. I think I know what it is as well, but he's feeding us the lines here. And I'm just going to say, green, yellow, red card process. What's that all about?
He wants me to give up all my trade secrets.
Exactly. Now. You're selling the secret sauce.
Okay, so what we do is when we end up, first of all, and I don't think that's in iIntro, it's something that we added on to it.
This is you.
So what we did is, because everything was in the process within iIntro, apart from the final step, we say, and the final step is, you present your short list, and then if a client is smart, he uses the ranking graph. This has now been changed to a different kind of graph, and he looks at the percentages and he says, okay, so we have 5 candidates and the match percentage is between 85 and let's say 65%. Let's go for the top 3 candidates and invite them for interviews. So we added on something else. We said, look, that part of the process, we also want to have it in a fixed process. So what we didn't like is that companies very often, they ask one candidate to come in on Monday and he'll talk to the HR director. And if the HR director vets for him, then he's getting a second appointment with the hiring manager and then maybe with 1 or 2 featured team members. And if it's a high up management role, in the end, the CEO wants to talk to him as well.
Yeah.
That means he's going to have 3, 4, or 5 interviews, usually spread out over 2, 3, or 4 weeks. That's just one candidate. Now, let's say we have 4 candidates.
Yeah.
We don't think it's fair because the candidate that's coming first is almost forgotten. By the end, they have spoken to the 4th candidate and pulled him through all the processes. So we tell our clients in the beginning, we kind of prescribe this is the way to do it. And we're very adamant about it. We said, look, if you have your final 3 candidates or even 4, let's pick a day where you as a client form 2 or 3 interview teams of 2 people each team. And we get in all the candidates on the same day.
Yeah.
And you will have each candidate in a separate room and the interview teams will go by the rooms. And you'll get an hour to talk to them, which, by the way, is perfect because in the reports of McQuaig, you get an interview structure that's set up for 60 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point.
So we show them that and said, we give you even the tools of how to conduct the interview. They're already amazed about that because nobody does that.
No.
It's very valuable because only the HR people in an organization know how to interview. The rest of them do it 3 to 10 times a year. They'll never get experience. Now they get a guideline how to interview.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do that. And by the end of that process, which takes half a day for 3 or 4 people, we sit everybody down in a room. I'll be the chairman of the meeting. And I will ask everybody, I will have 4 cards with me for the 4 candidates. Each will have a different color. And I will give every participant of the interview rounds those 4 cards. And I tell them, keep your cards under the table, pick out your 2 favorites. I count to 3. You put down your 2 favorite candidates or colors on the table.
Yeah.
I will tell you out of experience in 10 years, 9 out of 10 times, almost everybody will put down the same 2 colors, which are the same 2 candidates. Sometimes one will have 1 or 2 different colors. Mostly everybody gets out the same colors, which means we don't have to discuss the other 2 candidates anymore. We're down to 2. And then I tell the room that the highest up in the room, whether it's the CEO or the hiring manager, needs to be quiet, can say nothing. And I will go to them one by one. I said, okay, so you have yellow and green. That's Jack and Marianne. So if you had to choose between those 2, which one would you choose and why? And I will go to them one after the other. And the hiring manager or the highest in rank, the CEO, is the last one that gets to speak. Because if you let him speak first, the rest will talk after his, they'll please him. They'll tell you the same. So we do it the other way around. And to a shock of the client, usually within 45 minutes, they've decided which candidate. They have half a day of interviewing, half an hour to an hour of a wrap-up meeting, and they've made their choice instead of weeks of interviewing and deliberating and etc., which is very time-saving, and it's a very frank and honest way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, it just plays to, the 3 pillars that we talk about in our intro, how we help clients reduce their commercial downtime. You just amply described their situation where they're saving a lot of time, help them improve their new employee retention rates because you've got the 98%, not just the 96% that we often talk about. And ultimately that reduce their overall cost to hire. So time, people and money are things. Eli, we've taken up probably more time than we should have, but I hope everybody who's listening today has enjoyed listening to you as much as I have. From all of us here at iIntro, we wish you all the best and hopefully look forward to your next targets as you go through them. So from all of us here at iIntro, thank you very much, Eli. And from me, I'm going to say goodbye. And Eli,
thanks for listening and wish you all lots of success in the future. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye. See you next time.